Okay. So, Cyrus, I want to talk a little bit about ways that parents can, help support their swimmer. So, just for example, goal setting. Should a parent be involved in goal setting? Should that come from the kid? Is that dependent on age? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, as far as coaching goes, we do a lot to create a learning curve on goal setting. Goal setting is, it's a as long as you're a competitive swimmer, you should be revising your goals. You're revisiting goals all the time, and there's definitely different goal objectives. One of the goal setting things that I like to help parents understand and swimmers is that you should be making process oriented goals rather than result oriented goals.
What does that mean?
So, a process oriented goals would be something like I want to be, by 10 years old, I want to be streamlining without kicking, underwater streamlining, just as straight as possible out to 15 yards
Okay.
by 10 or 12 years old.
Okay.
That would be a process goal.
Okay.
And then you're going to your coach and you're saying, "Hey coach, I want to streamline to 15 yards and I'm only barely making it to 5. What can I do?"
So the parents really don't need to be involved in that. That should be between the swimmer.
The parents need to understand that what a process goal is, and that process goals are definitely going to be more positive and achievable and stick, right?
Okay.
Process goals are going to stick.
Yeah.
Once I've figured out the technical skills to streamline to 15 yards, that's going to stick. That's going to stay with me for quite a long time. When you're working on a result goal, time can slow down. If you have an injury, you stop swimming, you go on vacation,
Right.
It doesn't stick very long.
Yeah.
They're very short-lived.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a constant battle. So it can be, a little bit of a setup for failure if all your goals are result goals.
Okay.
You definitely want to have some result goals. I mean, those are consequence goals, right? Those times are consequences of process.
Right. Get that better streamlined, you're going to get better time.
So as far as goal setting and a parent, I would say just helping the swimmer understand the difference between a process goal and a consequence goal or a time goal.
Okay. What if your kid comes back, and this has never happened to me. What if your kid has a bad race? They're not happy with their race. How should a parent handle that in the car ride home?
Yeah, and again, I think it comes back to the process. I had 2 children of my own that swam. My boy is a very highly competitive swimmer at Cal, and from day one, we really worked on focusing on process.
Okay.
He was hard on himself, very, very hard on himself. Lots of tears, lots of bad feelings after a bad race, and I think approaching it with being humble and feeling it. I mean, they feel really bad about a bad race.
Yeah.
And so I think telling them that that's natural, telling them that that is something that is part of the process, is the best we can do as parents. As hard as it is, because it hurts to see your child upset or crying, oftentimes after a bad racing experience. But as you talk to them, as you talk through it, and you talk about the process, and you talk about where things went wrong within that process, if they want to talk, then it can sometimes help.
Okay.
But the best thing is just let them know that you're there if they want to talk.
Yeah.
And emphasize that it's part of the learning experience, that what they're feeling is natural, and it's not the end of the marathon.
I think it comes back a little bit to what we talked about in the previous episode about let the coaches coach.
Yeah.
And you be a cheerleader.
But the goal setting is it's an important step, and I think the goal setting also helps if they've shared those goals with you. It's something that you can help them through after a bad swim as well, if they're open to that. Sure. Oftentimes they don't want to talk about it. Oftentimes they just want to be sad and have your support and get a back rub and and move on.
Yeah. Okay. I remember someone told me once that a good thing to kind of tell your kid is that you really love watching them swim. So that they're not feeling pressure like I need to get a JO cut or I need to get an A time or whatever. Like that you are just happy watching them enjoy their sport and that you're not tied up in the result. I always thought that was good advice.
Yeah, and as a spectator, fan of the sport, and obviously a fan of your child or the swimmer swimming, you're not going to feel great about a bad result either.
Right.
But you can help them the most by supporting them.
Yeah. Okay. So I have found with our kids, like progression isn't necessarily this beautiful linear line where they just get a little bit faster every meet.
Yeah.
It can go like this. There can be like long plateaus. Can you explain like what's going on? Why might your team, they're shown to practice every day. Why are they not getting faster or maybe even getting a little bit slower?
Yeah, it's a constant chess game. And again, I think it just comes back to that. It really comes back to remembering the mental curve of this sport becomes exponentially more important as they get older, right? Mm-hmm. The physical development, you are going to get that nice, beautiful curve right up until 11, 12, 13, 14.
Right.
That's kind of the end of the romance. But as you start getting into those older ages, even as a development swimmer, I've seen it, we have Lance, we have some other swimmers that are getting older but have just started and are, on a really fast trajectory, but they're already going through little ups and downs. And a lot of that has to do with the with technical progression, right? Because swimming is an odd sport. It's in a water is something very unfamiliar to the human body.
Yeah.
We're dealing with a lot of streamlining, hydrodynamics. We're dealing with a lot of technical things that can go awry and slow you down. And it's a tough sport because as much power as you may gain by growing and getting stronger and knowing you're physically stronger and faster than you were when you were 13, 14, you have a different body mass in an unfamiliar environment.
Right. And
you're relearning the technical side, the hydrodynamics of swimming, and suddenly you're stronger. You've put more energy into that race. You put more power into that race, but the time's slower. Well, why? Because you were fighting the hydrodynamics. You were fighting streamlines. You were making mistakes that aren't allowed to go faster. If you make those mistakes, even the fastest swimmers going, these college guys, they make a micro mistake and they're able to identify that mistake. And even if they felt stronger, were healthier, weren't sick, all these other physical feelings, they went slower because they made a mistake. They messed up a turn. They messed up a wall. They pushed too deep. They pushed too shallow.
Right.
there's just so many micro things in this sport that can slow you down. So it's really a tough sport to tie into time results all the time.
Okay.
As much as tying into how did I execute that?
Okay.
I deal with a lot of swimmers through a season where I'll give them a specific target for a race. I just had a girl down in Reno at the Reno Gamble, and we were high-fiving and happy because she hit her target. Like, I gave her a target, she hit that target. I didn't care about the time, she didn't care about the time.
Right.
We were going after specific skill sets for certain segments of the race.
Okay.
And that is just getting things in place so that when championship meet rolls around, she's positioned better to get the best result she can.
Got it. Okay. What about, if your kid just doesn't want to go to practice? How do you handle that as a parent?
That's a tough one. It's I encourage at the youth level, I want them to be athletes.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're just having a little down cycle on swimming, I hope they're running. I hope they're, playing golf, mountain climbing. They're staying active.
Yep.
I think that's really where the parents want to step in. If they're just during their activity time sitting on the couch and playing more video games and saying I don't want to get up,
Mm-hmm.
that's when we got to step in and be like, no, you're getting up. We're going.
Right.
And they'll be rewarded for it, right?
Yeah.
It's swimming, it's mountain climbing. They're type 2 funds, right?
Right.
You may struggle to get going, but once you've finished, it's the top of the mountain, and you're like, wow, that feels amazing. So it is definitely not something to worry about until they're just not wanting to do anything.
Right.
During that activity time that has been scheduled.
So, what if they reach the point where they're just the heels are dug in and they just don't want to go to practice? Maybe it's time to take a break, try another sport.
Yeah, and you can take breaks on the club, and we have it all the time. We're very flexible. You just email me before the first of the month and tell me what's going on. I can set up a meeting at any time from 5 to 6 p.m. Set up a meeting, we could discuss it. I could hear a little bit about how the swimmer's feeling, but it's no problem. Even if you don't want the meeting, you can just email me and say, hey, we need a little break before the first of the month, and I'll put you on leave of absence, and no dues will be charged.
Okay.
I'm gonna watch